The rain fell hard on the city streets as night crept in. Drops hit the dirty sidewalk and made little splashes that wet the bottom of Ethan's worn jeans. He pulled his thin hoodie tighter, but it didn't help much against the cold. His stomach made a loud noise, reminding him he hadn't eaten since morning. The 17-year-old boy counted his money again. $20.37. It was all he had left after running away 5 days ago. Just need to make it to Uncle Dave's by tomorrow, Ethan whispered to himself. His voice didn't sound as sure as he wanted it to. The words hung in the air like the mist from his breath in the chilly night. Ethan had left home with just his backpack and the clothes he wore. His stepdad's angry shouts and hard fists had become too much to bear. The last fight had been the worst. When his stepdad knocked his mom down, something broke inside Ethan. He waited until night, packed a few things, took the money he'd saved from his summer job, and slipped out the back door. Now he was 300 miles from home in a city he didn't know. The smell of wet asphalt mixed with the greasy scent from a nearby fast food place. His mouth watered, but he needed to save every penny. Ethan found shelter in the doorway of a closed store. From there, he watched cars zoom by, their tires making that special wet sound on the road. Each passing vehicle sent dirty water flying toward the curb. He pulled back deeper into the doorway to stay dry. The neon signs across the street cast red and blue light on puddles. They reminded Ethan of the police lights that had come to his house 3 times before he finally left. Those nights, the officers would just talk to his stepdad, then leave. Nothing ever changed. As midnight passed, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Ethan's eyelids grew heavy, but he fought sleep. It wasn't safe to sleep on the street. A man had warned him about that yesterday at the bus station. "They'll take what little you got, kid," the man had said, pointing to his own empty backpack as proof. When morning finally came, Ethan's back hurt from sitting against the hard door all night. He stretched his arms and legs, which felt stiff and cold. His stomach hurt worse than before. He needed to eat something. A gas station across the street caught his eye. Maybe he could get a cheap snack there and use their bathroom to wash his face. Ethan waited for the walk signal, then crossed the street, his shoes making squelching sounds with each step. The station's bright lights hurt his eyes after the dim night. Inside, he walked past rows of candy, chips, and drinks. Everything seemed too expensive. He picked up a small pack of crackers for 99 cents. It wasn't much, but it would help. As Ethan stood in line to pay, he looked out the big windows at the parking lot. The morning sun was trying to break through gray clouds. Cars pulled in and out. People going about their normal lives. Ethan felt a sharp pain in his chest that wasn't hunger. It was loneliness. He missed having somewhere to belong. He missed his mom's smile, rare as it had become. He even missed school and the few friends he had there. For a moment, he wondered if running away had been a mistake. But then he touched the fading bruise on his ribs, and his jaw tightened. No, he had made the right choice. Uncle Dave would help him. He just had to make it one more day. Ethan paid for his crackers and walked outside to the gas station parking lot. The air felt damp, but the rain had stopped. He sat on a concrete block by the air pump to eat his small breakfast. Each bite was tiny, trying to make the food last longer. His mind kept thinking about Uncle Dave and the warm meal he might get tomorrow. Suddenly, a sound cut through the morning air. A scream, high and scared, made Ethan's head snap up. Across the parking lot, a woman with bright red hair was being pulled from a big black SUV. A man in a dark hoodie had one hand on her arm and something shiny in his other hand. Ethan's heart beat fast. The shiny thing was a gun. The man was yelling at the woman, his voice angry but too far away for Ethan to hear the words. The woman's face was white with fear as she tried to pull away. Without thinking about what might happen, Ethan dropped his crackers and stood up. His feet started moving before his brain could tell him to stop. His backpack fell to the wet ground as he ran toward the fight. All he could hear was his own breathing and the woman's cries for help. In his mind, Ethan saw his mom's face when his stepdad would grab her. He remembered how he'd been too small, too weak to help her. The feeling of being helpless burned inside him like fire. "Not this time," he whispered as he ran faster. The man with the gun was so busy trying to get the woman's keys that he didn't see Ethan coming. Ethan lowered his shoulder like he'd seen football players do on TV and crashed into the man's side. The hit made a sound like a thump mixed with a crack. The gun flew from the man's hand and skidded across the wet pavement with a scraping noise. The woman fell back against her car, gasping for air. Something silver hung from her neck, a necklace with a strange shape that looked like wings. Ethan and the man both fell to the ground. Pain shot through Ethan's shoulder, but he scrambled to his feet first. The man tried to get up too, his face twisted with anger. He swung his fist at Ethan, who ducked just in time. Years of dodging his stepdad's hits had made Ethan quick. He didn't think about what to do next. His body just moved. He pushed the man hard, then threw a punch that connected with the man's jaw. The pain in Ethan's knuckles felt sharp and hot. The man stumbled back, looking surprised that a skinny teenager could hit so hard. He looked at the gun, which was now far away, then back at Ethan. His eyes were cold and mean. In the distance, a sound cut through the air. Police sirens getting closer. The man's head turned toward the sound. He looked at the woman, then at Ethan, then made his choice. He turned and ran, disappearing between buildings across the street. Ethan stood there, breathing hard. His hands were shaking, and his knuckles were bleeding. The world seemed too bright. Too loud. He could hear his heartbeat in his ears. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked the woman, his voice cracking. He felt dizzy now that the danger was gone. The woman looked at him with sharp green eyes. She was older than his mom, maybe 40, with lines around her eyes but a strong face. She touched the silver pendant at her neck. Now Ethan could see it was some kind of motorcycle club symbol. "Kid," she said, her voice still shaky but strong. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" She wasn't angry, but something in her tone made Ethan nervous. She pulled out her phone and started dialing. "My husband's gonna want to meet you." Ethan's eyes went wide with fear. What had he gotten himself into? The panic must have shown on Ethan's face because the woman quickly added, "To thank you, honey. To thank you properly." She put her hand on his arm. "I'm Maggie. What's your name?" "Ethan," he said, his voice small. The police came and took statements. Maggie told them Ethan had saved her. After they left, she insisted he come with her. "My husband will want to thank you in person," she said. Though still nervous, Ethan got into her SUV. His backpack sat at his feet, his only tie to his old life. They drove through parts of the city Ethan had never seen. Old brick buildings gave way to wide-open lots with fences. Finally, they pulled up to a big building with motorcycles parked outside. A sign above the door had the same wing symbol that hung from Maggie's neck. "This is our clubhouse," Maggie explained. "Don't worry, you're safe here." Inside, a few men in leather vests looked up when they entered. They had beards and tattoos, and Ethan felt his heart race again. One of them, a tall man with a gray beard, walked over. "This, the kid?" he asked Maggie. His voice was deep like thunder. "Yes, this is Ethan," she said. "Ethan, this is Jack. He'll get you something to eat while we wait for Bear." "Bear?" Ethan asked. "My husband," said Maggie. "The president of our chapter." Jack led Ethan to a small kitchen area. He made Ethan a sandwich bigger than any he'd ever seen, with thick slices of meat and cheese. Ethan's stomach growled at the smell. "Eat up, kid," Jack said. "You've had a big day." As Ethan ate, more men arrived. They all wore the same leather vests with the wing symbol on the back. Some nodded at him. Others just looked. Ethan tried to make himself small in his chair. Hours passed. The room filled with more bikers. Some brought their wives. They talked in low voices, sometimes looking at Ethan. The sound of motorcycles outside grew louder as more arrived. "There must be 100 bikes out there now," Jack told Ethan. "Why?" Ethan asked. "Word spreads fast when someone helps family," Jack answered. The door opened and the room went quiet. A huge man walked in. He was as tall as a doorway and wide as two normal men. His beard was black with streaks of silver, and his arms were covered in tattoos. This had to be Bear. Maggie went to him and whispered in his ear. Bear's eyes found Ethan across the room. He walked over, each step heavy on the wooden floor. Ethan wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Bear stood in front of him, looking down. The room was so quiet, Ethan could hear the clock on the wall tick. "You saved my wife today," Bear said. It wasn't a question. Ethan nodded, not trusting his voice. Bear sat in the chair across from Ethan. It creaked under his weight. "Tell me what happened. Your words." Ethan told the story, his voice shaky at first, but getting stronger. When he finished, Bear was silent for a long moment. The room waited. Then Bear stood up. Every person went still. He looked at Ethan, then at the crowd of bikers. "This kid," Bear said, his voice filling the room, "risked his life for someone he didn't know, for one of ours." He turned back to Ethan. "You got somewhere to be, kid?" Surprised by the question, Ethan answered, "I'm trying to get to my uncle's house, in the next state over." Bear nodded like he was deciding something important. "We've got a friend heading that way tomorrow." He put his massive hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Tonight, you're our guest." The room erupted in cheers and the sound of bottles clinking together. Ethan sat in shock as bikers came up to shake his hand or pat his back. As the night went on, the clubhouse filled with the smell of grilled meat and cigarette smoke. Someone turned on music, and the sound of deep laughs mixed with the clinking of bottles. Ethan had never seen so many tough-looking people in one place, but now they didn't seem scary. They treated him like he was special. A woman with blonde hair brought him a plate piled high with chicken and beans. "Eat up, hero," she said with a smile. Ethan ate until his stomach felt full for the first time in days. Later, Bear came back and sat next to him. "Maggie told me you're on the run," he said quietly. "Want to talk about it?" Ethan looked down at his hands. They were still a bit red from the fight. "My stepdad," he said. "He hits my mom, and me. I couldn't take it anymore." Bear nodded slowly. "I know something about that. My old man was the same way." He took a drink from his bottle. "That's why many of us are here. This club became the family we needed." As the night got later, people started to leave. Maggie brought Ethan a thick leather jacket. "It gets cold at night," she said. "This is yours now." "I can't take this," Ethan said, feeling the heavy, smooth leather. "Sure you can," she said. "You earned it. They made a bed for him on the couch in the corner of the clubhouse. The leather jacket served as his blanket. It smelled like oil and the outdoors. As Ethan lay there, he counted 235 bikers who had come to meet him. He had counted each one as they shook his hand or patted his back. 235 people who thought he did something good. In the quiet of the late night, with just a few bikers still talking softly across the room, Ethan thought about the morning. How he had been alone and afraid. How one moment had changed everything. He woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Sunlight streamed through dusty windows. Jack was in the kitchen area again, flipping pancakes on a griddle. "Morning, hero," Jack called. "Big day today. Eat up." After breakfast, Bear showed Ethan a map. "Your uncle is here," he said, pointing to a spot in the next state. "That's about 100 miles. Bill is heading that way for work. He'll take you." Outside, the morning air felt fresh after the rain. A man named Bill stood by a truck with a motorcycle in the back. 5 other bikers sat on their motorcycles nearby. "What's this?" Ethan asked. "Your escort," Bear said. "We take care of our own." "But I'm not," Ethan started. "You are now," Bear cut in. He handed Ethan a small envelope. "There's some money in there, for emergencies, and our phone number. Any trouble, you call us." Tears filled Ethan's eyes, but he blinked them away. Bear pretended not to notice. The drive to Uncle Dave's took 3 hours. The bikers followed the truck the whole way, their engines making a roar that turned heads in every town they passed through. When they pulled up to Uncle Dave's small house, he came out looking confused and a little scared. "Ethan, what's all this?" Uncle Dave asked, staring at the bikers. "It's okay," Ethan said. "They're friends." After explaining everything to his shocked uncle, Ethan said goodbye to Bill and the others. They each shook his hand before riding off, the sound of their bikes growing fainter down the street. That night, in a real bed for the first time in almost a week, Ethan held the leather jacket close. He thought about how the world could change in an instant. How he had run away feeling worthless and alone, but had found courage he didn't know he had. As he drifted off to sleep, Ethan realized something important. Heroes weren't always who you expected them to be. Sometimes they were runaway teens with nothing left to lose, and sometimes they were tough bikers who recognized courage when they saw it. But most of all, he learned that family could be found in the strangest places, especially on the days when you needed it most.